Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick, and we are doing way too early draft week. We've done this every single year. We've identified future New York Giants in this process, so hopefully we're able to do that. We're going to do the offense today, so we're going to go through 9 players, 5 wide receivers, and by the way, we don't it's not like the regular draft pods where we do a bunch of prep and we pick the guys we want to talk about. It's kind of like we're guessing. All 5 of these wide receivers, I think, are first rounders. This is a good year for us to be focusing in on wide receiver. Justin, how are you?
Bobby Skinner, hello. Happy way too early draft week. It's always a fun week, and it's a fun week because I get to talk to a great friend and then also a very knowledgeable Giants fan and football fan in the Football Grump. So the Football Grump, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Yeah. Slick head for a slick summer, I guess. I think we were in Mobile last year, 2022, when the Giants head coaches were hiring a bunch of bald guys, and I said if Brian Daboll won me over, I would shave my head, and I think this is just my look now. So
wow, here
we are. Go Giants, right?
Yeah, you were saying you're going to stick with that, and I'm doing the mustache for NASCAR in a couple weeks, so we are. It's like a whole different podcast than when we were.
It's like it's some other dimension version of us, Bizarro, Bobby.
It's like we're just different people from what we were in Alabama.
What do I have to do?
half a year ago.
You have to grow your hair,
like swear off hot dogs or something. Yeah, you'd have to grow out your hair because you can't really grow good facial hair. You have to grow out your hair unless you could do like a goatee or something.
I'll grow an afro.
I actually don't want to see you with grown out hair. You've got your look figured out. I don't want to see.
You're fine.
I don't want to see any change in you, Justin.
You're fugly enough. I'm
just saying you've got it figured. You've got yourself figured out.
Oh wow, wow! That's one of the nicest things you've ever said to me.
So we're gonna go through 9 players. Couple other things I wanted to hit before. Grump, I don't know if you saw this. First time since 2019 when Jalen Thompson was drafted, who got a 3-year, $36 million contract last offseason. The supplemental draft is back, and it is scheduled for Tuesday, September 11th, which it's not on TV or anything. It's literally a conference call within the league. But, man, I am so excited for Tuesday, July 11th to be refreshing my Twitter. Did this guy go? There's a guy out of Purdue. Damn it, I forgot the name. I'm going to do a draft write-up on him. But a wide receiver, bigger dude. He missed last season. He's having eligibility concerns with his GPA and stuff. But the supplemental draft is back. And the last time it was there, we had a good player in Jalen Thompson.
You initially said September 11th, and I want to make clear it's July 11th.
I didn't know I said that. But yes, it's very clearly July 11th.
The last time in a supplemental draft, I mean, I'm sure Giants fans have Sam Beal PTSD.
Yeah,
Sam Beal.
What I'm thinking of.
Dave Brown.
I think the supplemental draft is probably going to go by the wayside over time, but it's usually eligibility concerns, some kind of health thing.
It's a by-year thing. If there's someone that's eligible, they do it. The last few years, there's been no one that's applied to be in it. But, Josh Gordon was part of it, and I wonder if you consider Josh Gordon a good supplemental pick because he was really good and then missed all his time. So I guess not.
But it was also everything that was a concern about Josh Gordon came to be a problem.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't even expect the Giants, depending on what the situation is. Like this guy can't keep his grades up. That might not be a guy that the Giants are interested in. But hey, I'm going to do my prep on it and be ready for it. Because if you would have got Jalen Thompson a few years ago for a 5th round pick, would have been a great supplemental pick. You get Sam Beal for a 3rd round pick, a bad supplemental pick. So it's I think once you get to the 5th round, then it's when you start using those picks.
I think it was less about Sam Beal the player and more about how high in the supplemental draft he was taken.
Yeah, I mean that ended up being an early 3rd round pick. I mean the Giants went from DeAndre Baker in the 1st round to O'Shane Ximines as the 95th pick in the draft without being able to make a selection in 2019 because of that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We'll be paying attention to that. Also, I'm going to put out the tweet tomorrow. Next week, we are recording our 4th of July mailbag. It's going to be myself, Justin, Danny King, and Snacks. And it's an annual mailbag. We We answer questions that aren't Giants football related. Now you can relate them to the Giants. Like one year we had a Giants barbecue. A good one was the Giants, like a starting five of basketball players of Giants players. That led to a really good one, and we actually got some of the Giants players to interact. So maybe we should even do that again 2 years removed. But yeah, it's about our personal. Yeah, it's basically just anything, hypotheticals, whatever about the show dynamic. We're not doing Giants football questions, the annual 4th of July mailbag, and then we'll have a couple special episodes the week after. So.
Will you be lighting fireworks on camera?
Good question.
You never know. You never know. You can't rule it out. Before we get into this episode is brought to you by a special person in Yeesh. Yeesh. Justin, who is Yeesh?
Who is Yeesh?
Yeesh.
Yes. They went to patreon.com/talkinggiants. And for $2 a month plus some other tiers, you get to hang out with us live. While we record the shows, you get to talk to the Football Grump. Hey, subscribe to the Patreon. Talk to the Football Grump on Thursday, probably Thursday evening, when we record the defensive way too early draft preview for 2024. Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers in the mail. Plus, there will be some shirt raffles that happen a couple times a month. Oh, also, shout out. I was in Atlantic City this weekend, and I'm starting to lose a little money. And this guy, Mike, sits down next to me, and he asks his father, what do you think about Saquon Barkley not signing his contract? And then my friends look at me, and then I start to get mad because I don't want to have a conversation about Saquon Barkley when I'm in Atlantic City. But we eventually get to the point of he asked that question because he's like, I thought that was you. So shout out to Mike, who recognized me at the tables at Harrah's. And then shout out to AJ, the front desk attendant at Harrah's, also recognized me from Instagram. So shout out to both of you.
Shout out.
If you changed your look all the time like me and Bobby, then no one would recognize you. So it's a good thing you're staying to your form there.
I work in New York City. I would think that there would be more people that would recognize me walking in New York City. 3 out of the last 4 times I went to Atlantic City, people have said like, hello, what's up, and whatever. And that's like Eagles country down there. So weird world we live in.
The city is just, it's a whole different world.
It is. I'm learning that.
The real world. All right, let's get into these freaking players, man. And we decided, because this is what people want to hear about anyways, and it's the players we're the most excited about. So we have 5 wide receivers, 3 offensive linemen, and a tight end. We didn't. We kind of went by positional, needs for the Giants in the future. We decided we're gonna go with wide receiver to start. So we are going heavy on the wide receivers, and we're starting out with the most obvious one, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. 6'3", 202 pounds, had 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns last year for the Buckeyes. I mean, guys, he's just a total package wide receiver who I think does everything well. Like, the worst thing I could say about him is, like, there's a bad rep here and there. But it's just, like, asking what does he do well in this area. I just don't see areas of weakness, and I'm excited to see if Grump has any pushback on that. So he has, like, all the athleticism to consistently run behind defenses, challenge at all 3 levels. I think his route running is just nuts in different ways, and he's just able to snap, like, just set defenders up and just snap off and create a ton of separation. And then even when he doesn't create separation, I mean, he catches contested catches. He makes these catches you're not expecting any watch to bring down. He brings them down. And I loved Jamar Chase. If you guys listened to this podcast back in 2020, you know how much I love Jamar Chase. He was the guy I wanted. Fell in love with him in the way too early, draft preview with Jamar Chase. But I truly do think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver prospect I've watched since doing this draft stuff in 2019. Do you think I'm crazy, Grump, or do you have what do you see out of him?
I don't think you're crazy. No, I mean, I think it's close. Jamar Chase and him are a little bit different. I think Jamar Chase is a little bit more physical and stronger. Maybe you disagree with that. I don't think so. But to your point as to, like, he does everything well, I can't argue with that. I mean, like, even stupid stuff, like going back to, like, really nitpicky stuff, like even ball security, my note is he puts the ball away remarkably fast after the catch. Like even stupid stuff like that, he's really, really good at. He's slippery. He bounces off tackles, so he's able to do stuff after the catch. I mean, I think as far as route running goes, he's extremely polished. There are still some things he could continue to add to his repertoire, but currently is not holding him back at all. So, I mean, like, basically what I'm saying is he can continue to get better. There is still some ceiling for him here. He doesn't utilize a whole lot of head fakes at Ohio State. And even being the number one guy at Ohio State, it's still that Ohio State offense that just kind of generates its own separation. So he has that benefit working for him that I think at the NFL level, he'll have to work a little bit harder, but he does everything right. I mean, like he flashes his hands late to make those contested catches that you talked about. Like it just makes a very difficult person to cover. I mean, like back shoulder throws, he's very in sync, really good timing on his jumps. I don't really have a strong thing I can really say that he's like
the total package.
Like,
yeah,
he really is.
I watch him, and I think Justin Jefferson is clearly the best wide receiver in the NFL right now, better than Jamar Chase, who I love. But I watch him. I watch what he does, and it's like that's what Justin Jefferson does. Like it's like those are the things that Justin Jefferson does on the sideline in the NFL to win, and he also adds the size element of 6'3", makes those contested catches. I don't like it's every year people oversell these prospects this early in the process and then you watch them, but it's like, I don't think this is one of those guys. I think this is a guy who is like, you don't need to do the over evaluation, the nitpicky stuff. I just think he's the best all around. Like, I'm sure I can go find like 4 or 5 reps, going through a couple games and say, hey, these aren't great. But at the end of the day, he's just the total package.
He'll even at the line of scrimmage at the release, he'll draw DPIs there. Like I said, like I think Jamar Chase is probably stronger, a little bit more physical, and can win certain things that maybe he can't. But when he loses those battles right at the line of scrimmage, he still draws a DPI. So it's still a win.
Yeah, Bobby, I know you have like, I don't know if these conversations have been on camera or off camera, but I know you have like crazy expectations for Marvin Harrison. I know, like we haven't gone through the top 32 guys in next year's draft, but if Harrison has a similar type of season and maybe he takes maybe even a little bit of a jump up, at least in his play wise, statistically we'll see. But I mean, how do you not get the feeling that, it's going to be Caleb Williams, maybe there's another quarterback, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. may be the first non-quarterback taken off the board. That's kind of how, hyped that Marvin Harrison Jr. has been. He was 8th in the nation in yards per route run last year, despite not being just the biggest guy in the world. He's definitely not the smallest guy in the world. Still a 60% contested catch rate, 18 for 30 last year. Also, like his like highlight plays include like a lot of like insane toe dragging plays too, which I find that, when you look at the jaw dropping plays that the best guys in the NFL do make, like the Chases, like the Jeffersons of the world, how often do you see them just, using all of their body, all of their length and getting both feet down, and toe dragging right on the sideline or even for a touchdown in the back corner of the end zone too. So Marvin Harrison Jr. certainly has it all. And what I'm really interested to see, more than previewing the player that he is now, really excited to see, okay, now that everyone, not only do college football teams know that this guy's the number one, everyone knows it. Everyone's going to be watching you. So that could be a little bit of a difference too. Schematically, everybody knew last year he was the guy. Football coaches knew he was the guy. But now everyone in the world knows it. So let's see how he handles that pressure.
Yeah, obviously, it's great. We didn't even mention, like, he's the son of Marvin Harrison, who was an amazing wide receiver for the Colts. Hall of Famer. I think him and Peyton. Do him and Peyton still hold the most touchdown to receiving record, or does I think Brady and Gronk may have passed that. So now people are going to be. I see it already. It's like, hey, the Giants aren't going to be in range to get him. I agree. I think this guy's a top 5 lock. But we try to go top heavy in this. Also, here's the way that Marvin Harrison Jr. could be a Giant. And it'd suck. It's Daniel Jones is injured. for like majority of the season. That's the way that Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I think if Daniel Jones gets injured for majority of the season, the Giants probably are picking top 5 to 8.
I don't even want to entertain that idea.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if because again we're not looking at the quarterbacks. This is the first year we did quarterbacks the last 2 years. Quick trivia, Justin, can you name the 4 quarterbacks we've looked at the last 2 years?
No, I cannot.
I know
Anthony
one
Richardson,
Hendon Hooker,
and then we don't do the top guys because it's like I'm not arguing about Alabama and Ohio State guys.
Do we do Howell?
Before. We did Sam Howell, one more.
And did we do Van Dyke?
No, I scrapped Van Dyke because I
him.
knew he sucked, even though I wanted him to be good as a Miami fan. Malik Willis.
We did do Malik Willis. Okay.
Yeah.
I would have gotten those if I actually thought about it.
We usually don't go like the guaranteed 1 or 2. Like, so like last year, it's like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Like, I'm not doing these on this way too early draft preview. It's like I'm not changing anyone's opinion, and I'm not watching 8 games of film a year before. All right, you guys have anything else on Marvin Harrison Jr.? I mean, I don't think people need us to tell them that he's amazing.
I think he's really good, pretty good.
Is there any chance he doesn't play this year, or like plays?
I wouldn't
like 3
blame
games
him either, and
I
I don't think it would change his draft stock at all. Like
it wouldn't change my opinion. No,
man, the COVID year, and maybe it was just the talent in that year because you had the Penn Sewells, the Slaters, Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons. There's an argument to be made. It's like that year off where you can just focus on getting better at your position and not playing the team the next week. Like all those guys came in and were amazing. Like Penn maybe wasn't like perfect right away, but he was also moving back and forth between right tackle and left tackle, and he was still solid. But it's like Jamar Chase was amazing right away. Micah Parsons, amazing right away. Slater, amazing right away.
Bosa too. Both Bosa's brothers did it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one of them did it like once he got hurt in that season.
Yeah, but I'm not. It doesn't matter. The point remains the same, I think.
Yeah. All right. Now, if you did sit out, you still got to watch the Ohio State wide receiver room because the next guy on this list, man, this is the guy who fits a Brian Daboll offense. And it was Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. It's Ohio State a heavy episode. As good as Marvin Harrison Jr. is, they played the same amount of games last year. Emeka had 3 less catches and 122 less yards than Marvin Harrison Jr. And he is versatile. Like, they use him in motion a ton. Now, he played mostly in the slot last year. He played 66% in the slot, a third and outside. But to me, he's playing outside in the NFL, and he has the size to do it. He has all the athleticism, all the traits you look for in an outside wide receiver. But you do have that versatility, and part of like, hey, being able to move between inside and outside and move in motion, it's like you got to be smart and know what your offense is trying to do and run. And obviously that fits what Brian Daboll and this offense want to run. Speed is really good, has the ability to stack and separate. Maybe doesn't have like the elite like run past you or away from you speed, but it's still really good speed. And I think his route running is beautiful on all 3 levels, like extremely quick, crisp cuts with no slowdown. He bursts out of them. His deeper routes can be a tad rounded, but he uses great sell to influence DBs and snaps off of them for separation. Whether that's coming like his comebacks and curl routes are a thing of beauty, like perfect timing on them, which is that's a great fit for what Daniel Jones and these play callers want on offense. It has that vertical sell. In the quick game, man, he's just very patient, tempos his routes, uses some influences DBs and then breaks off of them and just very quick and crisp. Solid yak guy, not going to do a ton. And I haven't seen him too much in I haven't seen him too many contested spots in the games I watch. But to me, this guy's an all-around wide receiver. He is going to be a wide receiver one in the NFL. I think he's worthy of a top 10 to 15 pick. And in a deep wide receiver class, you can see the Giants being in range to go and get this guy possibly.
So I think Emeka is pretty interesting. You're very high on him, and I'm more looking forward to how he's played this season. They gave him a lot of what I would consider questionable given his skill set roles. He played a lot near the line of scrimmage, with whether it was blocking on wide receiver screens or receiving on wide receiver screens. And I don't think that that's his specialty. Not to say he's not a good blocker. I actually think he's a great blocker on the edge. And I think that in the draft process, like 8 10 months from now, whatever, how many months that is. It's 9 months from now. That will be an underrated part of his game that people won't talk about, but will be something that they talk about like 2 years into his NFL tenure. But you said you didn't see a lot of yak from him. I haven't seen him break a tackle, not one. And that's a little concerning for me. I mean, he seems to go down immediately on every hit. Now, granted, this is not like real draft work that we've done here. This is just a quick preview. Also, the entire roster is going to shake up for Ohio State. They may play him differently. Defenses may play him differently, but everything else, I agree with you. I think because he played so much near the line of scrimmage, his deeper routes have less refinement than his intermediate routes. They're not bad, but like you said, just a little bit rounded out, where it's not anything that shows up in a result sense, but it's something that when you're A-Bing it with his intermediate stuff, and you can clearly see that his intermediate stuff is a lot more crisp, very sharp cuts. It gets really, really good separation. One thing that does stand out is he is really, really good at stacking DBs. He has a very good understanding of the route concepts and what he is supposed to be doing, what the play is supposed to do. He doesn't just do what he's assigned. He understands the point of what he's doing. And you can see it right there on tape. He's really, really impressive. And I think for me, I got to see him play a little bit more traditional wide receiver. I don't think the near the line of scrimmage thing is his thing. I know he's got the speed, but to me, he doesn't have the open field elusiveness. That would be my only knock on him.
Yeah, his IQ pops off the screen. So this is a very cheap comparison because it's the same college and they wear the same jersey number. Reminds me a little bit of Chris Olave, right? Where it's like, hey, he doesn't like blow you away with speed, but he gets open, down the field. Even though, again, Emeka was used mostly in the slot, and both those guys aren't going to be like, get the ball in your hand and make a play type guys. Now I think Emeka, and I loved Olave. He was my wide receiver 1 in that class, and Olave had a great rookie year despite missing game. I think he had more yards per game. I think he had the most yards per game for any of the wide receivers, despite Wilson winning the rookie of the year. But I think he's like almost like a better kind of version of Olave. Maybe Olave is a little more smooth, but it's just like their route running is so beautiful on all 3 levels, and they just know how to consistently get open. They seem like smart players. And again, it's like he doesn't break tackles, and I haven't seen him in those contested spots. But they used him in a lot of different ways, very versatile, and I think he's a guy who would come in here, fit perfectly. And I do think he will be a wide receiver 1 at the next level.
Yeah, he's been a big slot, like you guys have been saying, interested, along with echoing what Grump said, if Ohio State is maybe going to give him a little bit more inside-outside versatility this year. His yards per route run was nearly 3, so almost up with Marvin Harrison Jr. And my big thing, and Grump, you kind of took it towards, the end of what you were saying, a guy who's going to beat zone coverage with his ability to get open. This is a guy who knows how to get open. I mean, think of like Isaiah Hodgins towards the latter part of last year, a guy that kind of would just sit in zone coverage, know where to be, and know how to get open. So it's not just being open, but it's how to get open. If you can visualize the difference between those two.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, Justin, his play IQ pops off the screen. Yeah. And that being paired with, being extremely quick, crisp cuts, just no slowdown and bursts out of them, understanding tempo and those quick game stuff. So I just think he's a guy who's going to be able, you can trust him at all 3 levels, and both it has that outside-inside flexibility. So I want to do this before we hit the next 3 wide receivers.
Read it out.
But I want to ask you, so let's compare it to this draft class that just happened. Any wide receivers that you would have had rated higher than Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka? And not like what you project a year from now. Just flat out, if these guys came out in the last draft, would you have anybody over? I'm not, Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't even joke. Is there any wide receivers from this last class you'd have over Egbuka?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd have to do real work if I would put Zay over him. But Zay would be the only person that I would consider.
And I love Zay Flowers. I would not have him over Egbuka. What about Xavier Worthy, Texas, that we're going to talk about next?
Yeah, I think I have Zay over Xavier Worthy, but it's hard to tell because I mean, I don't know what you think about the Texas quarterback, but he doesn't do him too many favors.
I think I would take Worthy over Zay Flowers.
Interesting. I mean, it would be close for me. I do think Worthy's
can
really
play
really
a factor in there too. Zay Flowers stayed a little while.
Yeah.
You know, Xavier Worthy just came in. Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington.
Yeah, I think that's going to be hard to tell because he just transferred to Washington. He only played 1 year there, right?
Yeah, he's only got 1 year of production for them.
And it's weird because he went down in competition going to the Pac-12. But I could see Odunze potentially being one of the bigger risers in this class. I think playing with that quarterback in Washington, I think Washington might do really well in the Pac-12 and garner more national attention than normal. And I think that Odunze will stand out. But personally, from what I've seen so far, I wouldn't put Odunze ahead of Zay Flowers.
That one's tough when they're two totally different players.
Yeah. He's closer to Quentin
I think
Johnston.
Zay being 5'9" makes me pick Rome. If Zay was 5'11", I would say Zay Flowers. And then Malik Nabers, the fifth guy we're going to talk. I think I'd take Zay over him. But even then, it's like you see a little bit of like some of those running back type wide receivers. Like, yeah, I'm not going to say Debo because Debo's a lot bigger. But it's like you see a little bit of that in Nabers.
Yeah, and I think even like to some extent, like Addison and JSN are such good route runners, and it's a little harder to tell with Nabers. I mean, we'll get into more detail.
I forgot about JSN.
LSU.
I was about to bring him up, being like, I think I would take JSN over some of these guys. I
would take Worthy, Egbuka, and Harrison Jr. over JSN.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is very early in the process to be kind of like big boarding them, but
yeah. And again, we're not.
To your point, like they're all in the conversation that these top like two guys were last year.
Yeah, and I mean, my evaluation is a lot less casual than what it ends up being. You know, because like it's way too early, so it means you don't need to spend 5 hours on an evaluation. You know, a write up, but still. All right, let's talk about DraftKings next. It's a prospect that you just flat out can't miss, and you can hit it out of the park this baseball season with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you use code WORLD, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Don't bet on the Yankees, right? Like, I would say that's safe advice. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700 on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsibility gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Opt-in and 10 plus leg required for 100% boost. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings Sportsbook or terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/baseball terms. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did.
Whoa, Grump, same time.
You want to talk about Xavier Worthy?
We are not worthy of Xavier Worthy. 6'1", 160 pounds is Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. Had 760 yards and 9 touchdowns. So the least productive out of the 5 guys we're going to talk about. But the year before Texas, he had 981 yards and 12 touchdowns on 2 more catches. To me, this guy, there's things about his game that need to be improved and stuff, but you look at him, it's like, oh, he's going to be a good wide receiver. Like, elite, game-changing, speedy wide receiver who just creates big plays. Like, his speed eats up cushion. It runs past and away from guys. And the thing I look for in these type of guys, like, are they going to be good in the NFL? How do you work leverage? And he works leverage really, really well, especially downfield to influence DBs, get their hips open and break the other way. And I think he's got solid route tempo to burst out of, including vertically. Just has that amazing plant and burst out of his cuts. He's a real yak threat with his athletic ability and understanding of leverage, and he tracks the ball well downfield too. So it's not like, hey, it's this guy gets deep open downfield. No, he actually catches the ball downfield. Like he's got a solid catch radius. He tracks it well. The route tree is a bit limited, but he has all you want in there to be a good route runner. You can see like his route running it's just not, it doesn't look natural or smooth. It's a little herky jerky, but he's a guy who gets open. Now, I'm not comparing him to Garrett Wilson because I think he's a different player, but in that aspect where something I look back at and maybe it's like, all right, you don't need to judge this guy as these harshly. Like I thought Garrett Wilson's route running looked sloppy. I think it looked horrible, but he was someone who understood how to work leverage and get open. And that's where it's like, okay, that's why I wasn't as high on him. And that's where I was wrong. I look at Worthy and he has all of that. Justin, what do you think about the Texas kid?
I mean, his stop and go ability is awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome. He attacks all levels of the field. There's about an 80-20 outside to inside split. You mentioned how explosive he is. The thing that I want to really look out for this year, he had a really low catch rate this past year. It was higher in 2021. I think it was around 60% last year. It was 52% this year. Really low yards per route run, but you got to look at the average depth to target. The average depth to target was like 17. So the further you're, averaging throwing down the field, the lower your completion percentage is inevitably going to be. So I want to see this Texas offense lean on Xavier Worthy a little bit more this year. Maybe bring down that average depth of target a little bit more to increase that catch rate, and let's see how much he actually can be relied upon. Well, also, I want to keep the explosive plays in there as well. There are some questions. I mean, he's listed as 6'1", 163. Questions on weight, physicality, and ability to kind of handle contact, but he's used on sweeps out of the backfield. He's versatile. He's used in a variety of ways. I'm really excited to see what Xavier Worthy is going to do this year.
Grump, you mentioned the Texas quarterback, Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers. I mean, I think that has to do with what Justin said about the stats change for Xavier Worthy might have to do with the quarterback change from Sam Ehlinger to Quinn Ewers. I wouldn't know for sure. It's not like I follow Texas super closely or anything like that. But just based on the notes I have watching like 2 different years worth of film are kind of drastically different, at least lends me to that sort of line of thinking. And also like I think Quinn Ewers is just, when protection breaks down, just sort of does a chuck in the air kind of thing rather than be a little bit more composed. That being said, to Xavier Worthy, Justin did mention a little bit of weight concerns. 160.
Does he look that small to you?
He doesn't look that small, but because college numbers are usually inflated, not deflated.
Yeah, because I watch him and I look at a guy and I'm like, okay, 185, like 185. Don't notice, like you watch Emmanuel Forbes, like that dude's skinny.
Yes, agreed.
And then I went to go write down his stats for the notes, and I was like, 160, what? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like they need to boost those numbers up, even if they're fake, because I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, that seems incredibly low. I don't really know what to think of that. I mean, my first thought is like, does he get bullied? And I don't really see a whole lot of evidence of that. So if weight is just a number, so if it's not really impacting the play, I'm not going to get concerned by it. So right now, it's not a huge concern of mine. Just definitely a note. Bobby, you mentioned that his route running is less smooth and more herky jerky. I have it more as like sharp and deliberate. It doesn't feel like it's second nature, but everything is still technically correct, I guess is like the best way I can describe it. He does a really good job of tempoing his speed, though. I mean, that's something that just jumps right off the film. He understands exactly when to burst, when to kind of just like lean and pull away. I would say right now his suddenness seems NFL caliber already. I wouldn't say it's elite, the kind of thing that like jumps off the film and you're like, oh my God, this guy, his suddenness, his quickness, it's like the best I've seen. I don't think anyone would really say that, but a really nice route running combo package of like everything that he does really well. Really good hand-eye coordination as well. He has really good, well-timed jumps at the receiving point. He naturally adjusts his body really properly and completely. Not a whole lot of like half-assed turn body, one arm catches. Like really will flip his whole body around, flip his hips inside out, and make open catches, adjust to the ball in the air. My only thing maybe is he might tend to fade a little bit, maybe at the receiving point or at the tail end of routes, rather than be a little bit more regimented with that. But all things that are easily cleaned up. I nothing really detrimental. I'm really interested to see what his 40 time is when it happens. I think getting a good handle on how fast he is actually a good weapon in his arsenal. I think because he's able to tempo his speed so well, and you don't see him run at 100% so often, it makes it difficult to defend him. I hope that the Texas offense allows him to shine a little bit more this year.
Yeah, the route tree was limited. To echo what you're saying, like one of the notes, bullet points I have is solid route tempo to burst out of it, including vertically. So like kind of the way, a lot of the way, like the one good thing you saw from Jalen Hyatt's route running too is like that almost like he's like kind of float, like fade. You're not going full speed, but you're so fast that you're still able to eat up that cushion, get that DB's hips turned, and then bang, plant that left foot in the ground and get up the seam. You know, and he had he beat Brian Branch of Alabama, who obviously Brian Branch has one negative point with speed, but you see him hit that like you see how fast he eats up that cushion, and then he plants, and that second gear, man, is just able to take off. So like you said, it'd be interesting to see what his 40 time ends up being. But yeah, like again, there's some ruggedness to the route tree or to his routes, and then a limited route tree. It'd be interesting to see how Texas does stuff with Steve Sarkisian, but I definitely think this guy's a first rounder, and I'd be very surprised if he's not a first rounder. And he's got the yak for it. All right, next. Again, we're going wide receiver heavy. This is like a wide receiver draft preview almost. Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. We got a big guy, 6'3", 200 pounds. Had 12 games for the Huskies. Had 1,145 yards on 75 catches and 7 touchdowns. Big wide receiver, obviously, but he can move really well, like while also doing the big wide receiver things for me. And that's what, like, the more you get into this stuff, it's like less about like being a big dude and going up and making tough catches. Like you want to do that stuff, but it's like, how do you move? And I think he's got good long speed and solid speed all around. But overall, just a smooth mover on the field, which leads to being a good route runner. Like I don't watch his route running and be like, oh, that's like Emeka out of Ohio State, and it just blows you away. But it's solid, good stuff with his size, with his ability to move. And I think it's going to lead to being a productive NFL wide receiver who has wide receiver one, like a wide receiver one ceiling, and part of that is like, hey, like I watched him versus UCLA, had an out and up, beautiful, smooth, double move touchdown. And then, like I said, he does the big wide receiver stuff, like really good leaper, can really contort his body well to the ball well, like really well. And even in like, sometimes even in the short area of the field where the ball's just thrown behind him, he's able to go and make that catch where it's like, man, that was nuts. And then also making the acrobatic catches, snatches the ball and make tough catches. So uses his size very well, while people, like he's someone who's going to have a better 40 time than his speed actually is. Like I actually think he's going to run in the 4.3s, and he was a track star too in high school, but he's not faster than a couple guys he may run faster 40s than, but he's got, because he has that long speed. So, another guy, again, this is why it's like when I talk about this wide receiver class that we're talking about, it's like these guys are all good. Like this is a good year for the Giants to want to focus in on wide receiver in the draft.
Grump.
Yeah, this is the dude I'm most excited for, and I think it's because he has that rare size to him, the same way that Marvin Harrison does, although he could actually be in the Giants range, I think. 6'3", 200 pounds. He's good off of the snap, which is not usually a big guy thing. He has some quick feet. He has a varied approach to the release. He has the length, the physicality to win against press man releases. He could stand to get stronger, but he already understands how to long arm, dip the shoulder, all kinds of stuff. I watched him versus Stanford because I was hoping I could get a matchup with Kyu Blue Kelly. And I was delighted to see that happened here and there. And he had his struggles with him, but also won versus Kyu Blue Kelly. So, that was nice to see him going up like a true NFL corner there. He is pretty smooth in his route running. I think he has good sharp cuts. He's got good start and stops. I'm not really sure about his route tree, especially at Washington. Although they, that Michael Penix, they're playing quarterback.
Any relation?
I'm not sure.
Do you like him?
I don't like his arm release. He's like,
I think the game I watched, which was UCLA, he sucked. and he was making some really stupid decisions. Like, I think that's a guy who is getting some, like, the quarterbacks always get the most love and the way too early, and it's like, look back and like, what? That's one where it's like, I only watched like one real game with the guy, but I was like, this guy stinks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really excited for him as a quarterback. I'm excited for him as a person who can not hold back the offense, which in the Pac-12, I think I just have a different standard for quarterback. I don't know if that's a shitty thing to say, but as far as his top speed, you're right. Like, he's a long strider. I think if you give him a go route, he might run by some dudes. But if he has a complicated route where he's got to start and stop, not that he can't do that, but I don't know that his speed is on full display that way. He's a decent hands receiver, flashes his hands late. He's able to corral tight window throws really well. He has the desired NFL natural catch radius at 6'3". He has good timing on jumps to maximize that length. The big guy stuff, he's physical and willing to win contested catches. That height advantage makes him an easy target, and we just assume that with 6'3" guys that they're good in contested catches, but it's not always the case.
No, a lot of times they're not.
Even guys like Quentin Johnson, where like one of the criticisms is he just kind of jumps for no reason. He's tall enough, and there's no reason for him to be catching things at his belly button when he's in the air. Just things like that, and I think that Odunze is pretty good at that. I think he has good open field moves. Not that these are comparable players, but putting him next to Egbuka, he really does have moves to break tackles. He looks like a natural runner, a natural athlete to kind of just stick his foot in the ground and make people miss. Again, granted, he's playing in the Pac-12, so we're not talking about playing the Michigans of the world out there, but we'll see if that moves on to the next level or not.
Well, I think it's similar to a guy who was from the Pac-12 and big like that too, Drake London. Where again, sure. It's like you're not going like, man, this guy make you miss, get the ball in his hand, let him do something. But it's like for a 6'3" guy, he moves pretty damn well, and he can get you some yak too.
Yeah, he really does look like a natural athlete. He looks very natural with the ball in his hands, making people miss or just running in general. The problem, I think, is that he is 6'3" and he's a little bit lanky. So I saw like a couple times he's like juking guys out of their shoes, but he's so long that they're still able to get a hand on his foot or something, and it trips him up a little bit. But that's what I got on him.
All right, next on this list, last wide receiver, Malik Nabers, wide receiver out of LSU, 6'1", 188 pounds, had over 1,000 yards on 72 catches for the Tigers last year. Go Tigers! Good speed to me, Grump, but I think he's more of a burst wide receiver. He is very physical through his routes, and that shows up in like curl routes where he's going to give that push off, which I think he'll get away with. And I think his route running is average, but you see the room for improvement. Like, let me ask you I watch him versus man coverage, and I just don't ever see him really separate or stack. And he'll make catches. Like, he makes some tough, crazy contested catches, but versus man coverage, I don't see a guy who's just like naturally separating from these guys, from players. And it's like, that's what keeps me from like not being as hyped as him as I am the other four guys.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I think that his style of play where he's not really good. Well, do you think? Well, no. All right, let me answer, and then I'll follow it up with a question. So, I think personally that LSU being kind of like a mid-tier SEC school right now, offensively, and just having to play against really good groups of players, even if they're playing Mississippi State or whatever, you know what I mean? It's not conducive like his style of play. Like, he's never going to get like a ton of natural separation. I think that LSU's offensive line stinks enough where, defenses can gamble on guys running short routes because there's just not enough time in the pocket or whatever. I think that doesn't help him any. But I think it actually exacerbates his inability to separate. And I think the quarterback situation at LSU is not really as willing to throw into tight windows, but every time he does, Nabers does corral the catch. He does make really nice tight window catches, shit that shouldn't really be happening at the college level. And what's weird is I think he will probably test around a 4.4 top speed, but it's really difficult to tell based on film how that translates like in game, because like I said, like everything is just nothing's really happening too much downfield for LSU right now. So I'm not really sure, but the lack of separation is very clear.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they ask him to do, right? You know, if that is right now, if that's contested catches, and if that is how he's going to make big plays, he does it well. 62% contested catch rate, has outside inside versatility. It was 60-40 outside inside alignment last year. One of the things that, you know, he's listed at 6 foot 195. So even if that is inflated a little bit, I like how, you know, he's going to be able to handle press, and he's going to be able to handle physical cornerbacks at the pro level. I mean, I find, you know, how often are we talking about, you know, wide receivers with, you know, they're fast, they're fun, they're explosive, you know, they're quick, but they're not going to be able to handle press at the line, and then therefore maybe they're limited in the slot. I think that at least, you know, we'll see how this year plays out, but Nabers being able to handle the physicality of corners, I think that bodes well for him in the NFL. Then maybe if he can kind of get out of LSU's scheme, or maybe he can get, you know, a coach can kind of get their hands on him and be like, I think I could develop this in your route running here, or our scheme does this, I think it can fit well here. And I think Nabers is going to fall under that category.
Yeah, and I think there's, like you're saying, Justin, there's room for improvement to grow. I don't think he's ever going to like turn into some great route runner, but he does make those tough catches, and a lot of times the tough catch guys don't have this ability. Get the ball in his hand, right? Like, he's a true yak fed, and I think he runs like a running back, you know, and he's just going to consistently make guys miss, and just has like really nice contact bounce. Like, I remember he caught like a 5-yard hitch versus Alabama. And there's one guy directly behind him, and then 2 on each side coming at him. He makes all 3 guys miss. He's only got like 4 or 5 yards extra on the play, but he made all 3 of those guys miss. And like they gave him some reverses, and he just moves around like a back with that contact balance. So he has like, there's enough that he does well, where it's like, while you try and get him better, like it's like he's going to be a contributing factor to your team too. Like, you're not going to throw him. I don't think Malik Nabers, and hey, this could be the year he really improves too, and we're talking a year from now, like, man, look at all that stuff he improved, and that's the fun part of the way too early. But if he just came out in this last draft, I do think he's taken with a late first round pick, or maybe even a mid first round pick, and maybe is a guy like Brandon Ayuk, where doesn't get all the playing time in the world, but by time it's year 3 or 4, man, he's a guy you want on your team.
What I was going to ask you is, do you think there's a chance that at the NFL level he is like an option 2 in an offense? I mean, yeah, I kind of feel like there's a chance he could thrive that way, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that could be like the best opportunity for him to, you know, be someone that is really appreciated too, you know. And that's, again, and not everybody's going to be a wide receiver 1, and having a really good wide receiver 2 brings you a lot of value. So anything else on these wide receivers before we move to some hog mollies?
Before we move to hog mollies, Bobby, can I talk about a bird dog and some bird dogs?
Great product for hog mollies.
Great product for hog mollies. They got sizes for all people, but if you're a hog molly, if you're a little bit of a bigger guy like me, I'll be honest, Friday night going down to Atlantic City, I want to wear something nice, also want to wear something comfortable. I slapped on a pair of bird dogs because they have stretch khaki shorts. They are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look, but also something that I need to make sure doesn't happen. You know, when you're schwitzing at the blackjack table because maybe you're down a little bit and I got a big hand on the table, my bird dogs got me with anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps me cool and dry all day and all night long. So thank you to Bird Dogs. I appreciate Bird Dogs for accompanying me on my trip to Atlantic City. So I want you to go to birddogs.com/giants for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. Wow. Talk about keeping you cool during the summer. That's birddogs.com/giants for a free Yeti-style tumbler. When you use that promo code, get yourself some Bird Dogs, keep yourself cool, keep yourself looking good and fresh. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did.
Bird Dogs keep you dry, make the ladies wet, right?
Wow.
Damn.
You'll be glad you did.
Hire me. All right, anyway.
This guy, I don't know, I'm interested to see where you grew up. A lot of people thought he was going to come out in this past class and maybe even be offensive tackle 1, and that is Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu. And you say, well, the Giants don't need an offensive tackle. I hope to God we're wasting our time on this. But we might not be. We could be in a bad situation. But I have faith that this is a waste of time. So we're going to talk about Penn State offensive tackle Olu Fashanu. The only tackle, I just wanted to talk about it because I just like him as a player. 6'6", 321 pounds. I think he's a very solid athlete for the offensive tackle spot. He's not the elite athlete that like Thomas or Penei Sewell is. Has natural play strength with real room to grow there as well. Man, I just watch him play tackle and I'm like, this is a good tackle, right? Like he's got a good base, good knee bend. His anchor can strengthen a little bit, but he's just got good consistent footwork, keeps his hips squares through the pass set, his feet stay collected through the rep. Like if there's one thing that I want him to, the couple of things I want him to improve on is strengthen the inside shoulder, because he's got a good post foot, but if a guy does get to that inside shoulder, it can be a little soft. And then, like, guys really don't get around the corner on him a ton, but when they kind of get to that edge, I want to see his feet move a little quicker with that guy around the corner. Where it's like, and I brought this up in the group chat, reminds me a little bit of Darisaw, where Darisaw will let guys get around the corner, but he does well. But it's like, man, you can dominate a rep. You're having a good rep instead of a great rep. I want to see more great reps out of Olu, even though there is a lot of great. But it's just mostly when guys are working that corner. Just move your feet a little quicker. Don't be like, you got the athleticism. You're not going to get beat back inside. So just keep his feet moving a little more through contact. And then the run game, man, like he's not going to be a guy who you watch on film and has all these bulldozer reps, but that's part of why he's good, is because he plays with good posture in the run game. He's not going to be leaning and looking to drive you 20 yards down the field. Like he can play a little high, but he's got good posture. His feet keep moving through contact, rolls his hips through the block. And on those little run out blocks, he's got the good torque power and technique for it. So, and I keep on doing this to you, Grump. If he would have came out, would have he been offensive tackle 1 for you over Paris Johnson,
and Grump
Darnell
hates
Wright,
that question,
Broderick Jones?
I think he probably would. Yeah, I think it pass sets. So the way I look at Olu is it Fashanu or Fashanu?
I said Fashanu.
Okay, all right.
Penn State fans would correct us.
Okay, we'll go with Fashanu. From the tits down, I think everything is great.
Sure.
Serious lower body strength. I mean, you can just looking at his frame, and it's like insane how thick he is on the lower end. And he's got a good, strong, steady base. He has really, really nice kick step. Really good lateral kick step with short, choppy kicks, stays in good position, whether inside or out, doesn't overcommit in either direction. That's really advanced at the college level. I do think that sometimes his anchor can suffer from pad level, and I don't know if you would correct me on that. I think he can get a little bit tall from time to time.
Yeah.
And I think he's a strong enough guy, he's a smart enough guy, and a technically sound enough guy at the college level where that doesn't affect him. But, projecting forward to going up against every single week, going up against Bosa one week and then, whoever next week, that's the kind of thing, the in and out, you're playing against the best players in the league. Pad level matters. As far as like the upper body goes, that's where I think there's the most improvement, but he's still really solid there. I think there's a little bit of lack of strength up, and I think you can see it too when you compare his, just biceps and triceps to quads. You can see right away that he's a lot thicker on the lower end than the upper end, and you can see it too when guys get inside. He gets a little bullied. He can recover really well, and I think he has nice, constant hands. I think, like you said, he works defenders around the edge really, really well. He manages to work his upper and lower body in sync enough where it's not showing up on film like mistakes because of upper body weakness. But I do think that he can stand to get stronger in the chest and in the arms and keep guys a little bit out of his body. And that, I think that honestly is just the missing ticket. Like, once he puts that together with what he's already got going on in the lower half of his body, I think he's set. I honestly do think that if he worked on that enough this offseason and, has a good season with that, he'll be one of the best tackle prospects I've watched.
You can tell he's smart and has been coached well, because he kind of lives by what Thomas did this past year where, hey, I'm not going to let you use my arms against me. Where he's patient with his punch. Now, like you mentioned, that allows guys to get into his chest and get a little bit of movement on the bull. Like you said, he's able to recover, can re-anchor. So he's kind of got to find that middle ground though, because you can't just not punch, right? So he's kind of got to find that middle ground of where to go. But it's like you can understand he understands being being an offensive tackle is all about. So he kind of invites that bull rush, and hey, like that's why I said he's got natural strength, but there's room to grow as well in there. So Olu Fashanu. So yeah, I think I would have had him over Paris. I think Paris's feet are a little quicker, and I like Paris. But in a draft where Darnell Wright went top 10, this guy would have went top 10 in the last draft, right? Like I watch him and I'm Darnell Wright. I'm like, these guys aren't on the same level. I think Broderick Jones should have went over Darnell Wright too, but I like Olu over Broderick as well.
I would agree with that.
All right, we time to talk about the guards.
Let's talk some guards.
Ohio State, 3 Ohio State guys. Maybe we won't do any Ohio State defenders to balance out. We seem like a bunch of Buckeyes fans. Donovan Jackson, guard out of Ohio State, 6'4", 300 pounds. Justin, he's a good athlete, but he's just got rawness to his game, and I think there's strength needed. I watch him, and I'm like, man, you got all the ability to be really good, but it just hasn't shown up yet. Like, he's got very quick feet. He needs to be better IDing moves. Like, get to the full man relationship, man. You've got the feet to get there. Move out there. Doesn't set out there. Like, his punch has juice, but it's erratic, and he'll lean, and that'll lead to him losing pass protection reps, where it's like the punch will come late, he'll be head heavy, and a guy will get in there, and it's like, hey man, break hands off. You work your hands, and they're able to like do that pull and rip move on him and leave him hanging. So it just looks like we just need a better IQ for pass protection. And then in the run game, you see some awesome stuff. Dude is very quick moving to the second level pulling. Amazing athlete for the wide zone. Very flexible hips. He's going to be able to get to that outside shoulder and flip his hips around. But there's also like, man, you're just hitting these guys with bad angles, and you're down the down run game stuff, right? Where it's like, this is just a bad angle that you're doing here. And he needs to, I think he needs to punch and play more like a bully. What do you guys see on Donovan Jackson of Ohio State?
Well, I first off want to just point out how Jackson is only 20 years old right now. So, this time next year, he'll be around like 21 and a half, like, drafted to an NFL team. So during the draft process, he'll be 21. That's super young. I think Donovan Jackson is a candidate. We don't talk about this super often, but sometimes this does happen with guys that we talk about in the way too early draft preview. Donovan Jackson's a candidate for, if this year doesn't go swimmingly well, he's a candidate to stay in school for an additional year.
That is fair. That is fair, because right now, like, so I do my grades on this, like, hey, not like projecting how you're going to grow, like just if you would have came out. Right now I have him as a high third, but I think he's got the ability to sneak into the end of the first round. Like, I really do think that of Donovan Jackson, so maybe he is a guy who stays for another year. But for my hope, it'd be like, man, maybe he doesn't get all the way better, and he's a guy you could get in like the second round type guy.
And he's still young, and yeah, you can form him up.
He's got the athleticism that this regime looks for in their interior offensive lineman. And we'll see how high Ohio State offensive linemen always get Is there any college that's offensive linemen get more pre-draft hype and then they get drafted and it's like they were drafted 2-3 rounds? What would it be projected? Like DeJuan Jones and Luke Whip. DeJuan Jones was getting first round hype, and I was like, "What are you guys watching?" And he went like 4th, 5th round. Luke Whippler out of Ohio State getting top of the second round. I think he went in the 4th or 5th round. It's like, what are you guys watching with this guy? Wyatt Davis a couple years ago, now a current Giants. Like, what do you guys not see some of the worst film you've ever seen at guard? Like, why are you saying this guy should be in play at pick 38 or whatever?
So one of the things I think about Donovan Jackson, though, is I think he could end up going the route of Wyatt Davis, where he gets maybe not necessarily better. Maybe he doesn't actually have the film on him that says he's better, but he has highlight film that can boost his draft stock, even though he's not necessarily better.
He's a better athlete than Wyatt Davis, where Wyatt Davis is a little sloppy and heavy.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, he certainly moves well for 320 pounds. I mean, goddamn. But he has what I like to call an attacker's mentality when it comes to blocking. He wants to deliver the hit. He doesn't want to absorb the hit. And that's something I actually really, really value. So I think that his natural strength, his natural size, and coupled with that, and just in general being on a good college team with good surrounding cast and good play calling and everything, that lends him to have more highlight plays, to look a little bit better than maybe he is. I think my worry with him is in pass sets. When it comes to the run game, I don't have a ton of worries where, I mean, he's just going to go and deliver a huge pop at the very least. I know I'm getting that much, but I think sometimes he can play maybe a little bit on his heels in normal pass sets. Like, it just doesn't feel like he gets into his base correctly every time. And if he goes up against, I mean, God forbid, if he went up against somebody like Dexter Lawrence, I'd just eat him for lunch, just run his ass over. And I of course, looking at the Giants trying to do like,
and that shouldn't happen to Donovan Jackson. That should happen to
not
guys
at
like
his size.
the
No
guy
way.
next to him, like Luke Weipler. Like, those guys should be getting demolished. Donovan Jackson shouldn't. But also, like Justin said, he is 20 years old.
Yeah, I mean, so my only worry is that he doesn't actually get better, but he has those pancake highlight plays, and he gets, somebody in his ear. Well, I mean, whatever, it's his life, but somebody telling him that he's, worth a second round pick or something like that, when in reality he hasn't improved on the things he needs to. He's just going to have a tough start to his NFL career. But it's up to him, no matter when it is that he does it, in college, this year, next year, and the NFL level, he can correct all the things he needs to correct, all the natural stuff, down to the mentality of how you want to block like an attacker. I think he's got.
Yeah. All right, let's finish it off. We got two more players. We left off Cedric Van Pran just because we don't need a center. I wanted to do him just because I did a film breakdown on him, and I think he's really good. I think he would have been the number one interior offensive lineman in the last class, but oh well. Cooper Beebe, offensive guard out of Kansas State, 6'4", 322 pounds. One of the older guys that we're going to talk about. Average athlete for the guard spot, but it's good enough for the NFL. Strength is solid, and I think he plays stronger than he actually is. He's good, man. He's aggressive. Like, he understands. Like, he plays with that pop. Like, he's got good knee bend and pad level. He's always gonna be a low man. And then once he has hands locked on you in pass protection, it's over. Like, he's got strong grip. He's gonna keep you. He's gonna rework, and he's gonna end that rep. And he's got great awareness for protections and when to give help. And then the run game, I think he fires off the snap. Good leverage. Keeps his feet moving to win with angles and leverage. Also, he's a really good puller, like in bursts into those blocks with great angles. But I think he's someone who's going to struggle with maybe not. He just doesn't have like the foot speed that you aim for in those top guys. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Cooper's a candidate for the Giants. I know this is not a Giants way too early draft preview. This is just a way too early draft preview. I don't think this guy's a candidate for the Giants. Because I have him as power is greater than quickness. Not that he's a bad athlete, but I just think that the power is the stronger part of his game for sure. Plus a little on the older side as well. Does he have some tackle versatility in there?
Bam! You took it from me,
but I think he did.
You took it from me. That was my big note on him, is how versatile he is. 2020 right tackle 8 games, 2021 left tackle 13 games.
Oh,
so yeah, go on.
No, that's it. Take it away.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
That's you guys pretty much said it, so I'm not going to harp on it. I think for being 330 pounds and 6'4", I think he moves pretty well considering. But I mean, if you're running a highly mobile offensive line offense where you need him pulling on a lot of plays or moving
in
to
the
the
run
second
game,
level,
I think it's fine. Athletics is fine. I think it's just as a pass protector, the feet are a little slow.
I completely agree, and I think sometimes his slow feet can cause him to start doing some chase shit, which you never want to be doing, especially at the interior. As soon as you start turning your hips to chase, you've lost. And that can happen from time to time, but not often. I don't think he has too many mechanical issues. My biggest thing is he gets a little overambitious with his strength, probably would be the only technical thing that I can cut him on. And he tries to drive to deliver some power pancake. And he doesn't need to. He really should just work on just delivering a good block, because he can whiff or just, pop into somebody and let him go when he should be trying to lock and drive or something like that. But given his versatility, it'd be really interesting to see what NFL teams see out of him, because I don't think he'll be a tackle, but the fact that he can move around, maybe play right guard and left guard or something like that, adds some value to his name.
So I have him as a high 3rd round pick, and I don't see it moving from that. Like, I don't see him ever moving into the 2nd round. Definitely not the 1st round. And age has something to do with that. If he was 20 years old, I would say differently. But like, just think about like this, like, let's look at the interior guys that won the 2nd round this past year. You had Steve Avila, Joe Tippmann, John Michael Smith, Osiris Torrance. You taking him over any of those guys? I might take him over Tippmann.
I might take him over Tippmann, yeah. But not JMS.
But Tippmann obviously was put in the 2nd round because of like athletic ability, not because he's got like this great film or anything.
He got put in the 2nd round because the Jets were on the clock.
Huh.
Yeah, the Jets, man. The Jets were the 2021, 22 and 2021. I was like, who had the best draft? Like, Jets. And that included like Zach Wilson in there. This past year. All right, let's finish it off. Tight end. We're looking at one tight end. We're not going to look at Brock. It's Brock Bowers, the Georgia guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd figure we're not like this guy. Hey, he's really good. But out of Texas, another Texas guy, Jatavion Sanders, 6'4", 256 yards, had 256 pounds, had 613 yards and 5 touchdowns. Just an athlete, right? Like, he's very fast with good long speed, dynamic tight end. Speed and get off are excellent, make him a weapon. You know, you can use him in the yak games, and that got a nice change of direction. They used him in some screen stuff that worked really well. Also, his releases are really good, right? Like, I think his route running needs a lot of work, but the releases are good. If you can have good releases and you're a tight end with that type of athleticism, man, you can win off of those 2 things alone. So the route running, I think, needs work. They're rounded and they telegraph. There's not much sell. Like, I think he just needs to do so much more at the stem of the route, which is very important for playing a tight end. But man, this guy can freaking move for that tight end spot.
We're talking to a guy whose film we're watching is a true sophomore film. So we're talking about young guys before with not Cooper Beebe. Well, who the hell was
Donovan
Jackson?
Jackson.
Donovan Jackson. Yeah, this guy's pretty young as well. And I agree with you. I think the route running is okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but it can get so much better. There's a lot of room for refinement. He can add shimmy. He can sharpen. He can clean up his cuts. But like you said, the first thing that jumps out at me for a guy who lines up pretty equally between the H spot and the Y spot, he gets out of his stance really well in both spots. And that's pretty rare to find someone getting out of the Y inline tight end spot very quickly. In addition, I think he really is an all-around tight end. I think for being only 200, you said 256. For whatever reason, I have him at 240. It doesn't matter. College numbers are fake. But I think he's used a lot in the lead and pulling blocks.
He's a good move blocker, man.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good blocker. He is an all-around tight end. And I was a little surprised. I saw his numbers, 6'4", 240, and I just thought I was going to be seeing like just a guy who's running downfield all the time. And that was not the case. And he looked good in pass blocking sets as well as run blocking sets.
Yeah, like, he's not sustaining in line very much, but he gets to the beginning of the rep, and then, like you said, if you put him as a move blocker, whether it's in the H-back, out on the perimeter, whatever, like, he does well with that. Like, he works angles, and like some of his move, like some of the stuff getting him out in space as a blocker, like broke big runs for Texas. So it's like, all right, we got something we can use there, where it's not like we're looking at, hey, this guy's quick, needs to work on route running, he can't block worth of shit, which are those are the guys I usually hate the most in the draft, because everyone falls in love with them because they're so fast. Yeah. But it's like, at least you got like some floor of like some decent blocking. So it's like, all right, just clean up the route running and I'll actually like it, Jatavion Sanders. So I put him as a late second right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he is a second round guy already. And I think, like I said, he is very young. If he cleans up some of the things with the route running, I would not say it's insane that he could sneak into the first round.
I mean, Dalton Kincaid went in the first round. Luke Musgrave, if he played more than 2 games, would have went in the first round. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he snuck in there.
Yeah, and he was about 60% in line, and then between being out wide and then being in the slot, it adds up to around 40%. I went into this because I just looked at his height and weight, and I'm like, all right, we're going to see somebody who is going to just run fast and be fast and maybe not able to block. So I was kind of a little disappointed to see that he wasn't being totally used vertically down the field. Now, his average depth of target was around 8.8. There were some games where it was really large, and there were some games where he was primarily kind of just used as this check down target. So I'm excited to see him grow. I'm excited to see him kind of, how he can kind of further get better this year. I want to see him used further down the field. I want to see him more used as a receiver, because he is a physical player, much more physical than I thought just by looking at his height and his weight.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we'll be back on Friday for a defensive draft preview. We won't waste too much time. Grump's going to be back there, so this episode's went a little long, so we'll probably just do 8 players on Friday. So we'll see you then. We appreciate you guys. Until then, let's go Big Blue.